Imagine a world where you are underpaid, given meager accommodations, sustained on a stream of cheap processed foods, fed instructions from a faceless higher power, and are completely and utterly alone in. Such a society is sure to fail. Luckily, New York Times tells me we're doing just fine. A world like this exists, however. Into the Radius, a VR survival shooter developed by CM Games that I urge those of you aristocratic enough to run and passionate enough to enjoy to consider. Since its release in 2020, it has been the best World War III atomic reveille simulator on the market that I can experience from the comfort of my own home, which is where I intend to stay when shit hits the fan. I have no interest in dying for the proxy wars of bitter old men, as my own country is run by clowns and corpses, which sounds like an ICP album, and I am not a gigolo. And I'm of the opinion that Putin is an ailing tyrant with a Napoleon complex that will soon commit his predecessor's cardinal sin of fighting on Russian soil during the winter. No, I won't be participating in the Cold War's The Union Strikes Back. I'm just your average radcore enjoyer with a fixation on military surplus, which makes this game an S tier for me. So enough about the depressing realities of life. Let's discuss the exciting possibilities of ITR. From this point forward, I'll be referring to Into the Radius interchangeably with ITR. We work in a fast-paced environment. Try to keep up. The open-world video game concept has been around since the 1970s, and might be a bit stale to our gamer neurons. Survival games where your primary objective is to survive and thrive have also had their decades-long reign. However, take these two designs, bring them to a boil in a VR headset, add 5 grams of cosmic horror and the zest of one Soviet-era depression, and you are left with one of the most immersive experiences technology can currently offer. Topped off with a chef's kiss for attention to detail. Outside of the comfort of your base, you'll be greeted with a vast, inhospitable landscape of impossibilities. Shadowy ghosts sit petrified, frozen in time. Strange rifts cut through the air, pulsating as you draw near. Even gravity itself has seemed to fail here, as you balance yourself up a tightrope of dirt, torn from the cratered earth below. As you do so, you draw your trusty sawn-off shotgun, which you own without fear that the ATF will default dance on your wife and children. Yes, truly a strange land with a breadth of muted beauty to be found amongst its ruins. On occasion, I can't help but stop, light up a smoke, crack open a cold one, and breathe in its atmosphere. Now stop me if you've heard this one. Something fucky happened in a Soviet town that no one's heard of before the 1980s. Don't stop me, that was rhetorical. Please continue watching. If you found yourself on this video, you likely know what this game is about. But if you don't, please, stop this video, open a new tab, and search any of these key phrases and learn yourself some lore. If you find my instructions to be too contradictory, then good. Think for yourself. Anyway, continue watching. There are some differing characteristics between ITR and the rest of the Eastern Bloc Atomic Anthology, besides the fact that you strap this one directly to your eyeballs. Example: instead of an array of human and mutant enemies alongside these scientific anomalies that will rip you limb from limb, you have habitual crocodile users roaming Pechorsk ruins. Fun fact, crocodile is Russian for crocodile. I've been told it was given this moniker due to the scaly green necrosis that develops around the site of the injection, but I reject this reasoning. It's called crocodile because if you fuck around with it, you're likely going to lose a limb. This is a PSA, do not intravenously ingest gasoline. Huffing it, however, is still an acceptable recreational activity. Common sense announcement aside, I find the foundation that the Radius is built on quite interesting. This game feels like another footnote in the commiserating of Chernobyl and the harrowing incident that took place there. There have been plenty of pieces dedicated to Pripyat, such as Roadside Picnic, where someone leaving Ground Zero would bring with them natural disasters that ravaged wherever they were until they were killed. And Ground Zero was filled with a level of death and malice that can only be described as otherworldly. In Stalker, the event is trapped within the confines of the zone, contained and quarantined in the famous city of Pripyat, and still loosely focused on the nuclear crisis that took place there. The game's open world is as faithful a rendition to Chernobyl as could possibly be accomplished on what I could only assume was a Tandy Radio Shack TRS-80. And Into the Radius, however, there is no Chernobyl, no Reactor 4, and not a living soul. Sites in the Radius look more like paintings of the incident, rather than the photograph that Stalker provides, or the description of biblical destruction that Roadside Picnic offers. In ITR, the town, Pechorsk, is just vaguely familiar enough to evoke the sensibilities of a time and a place that likely have never been observed by anyone who plays this game, but seem to resonate with nonetheless. You explore this place alone, a tourist in an abandoned amusement park, which operated one day and was derelict the next, leaving all of its prizes and all of its dangers for you to excavate from its ruins. Despite Chernobyl's disaster happening nearly 40 years ago, it still serves as a perfect canvas for the imaginations of the macabre, blending the horror of the unknown with the existential dread of one of the most inalienable truths we do understand about the universe. It's pretty fucking scary if you're out there alone. But we can wax philosophical later. We're here for fully automatic adventure and existential exploration. The now deserted city of the Radius has attracted special interest groups for its stockpile of lost treasures and peculiar artifacts conjured from the cataclysmic event. You are Explorer 61. You have amnesia, like all who were in the Radius during the incident. Also, your heart will stop if you leave its borders. Or at least that's what they tell you. So now, in order to survive, you'll be doing the bidding of the United Nations Pechorsk Special Committee. They don't care how the job is done, or how many specialists they need to send in to do it, and you are here to fill a recent vacancy. You'll be sent into the Radius to retrieve artifacts, recover data, and perform pest control, while slowly untangling the threads of a young woman's story throughout the Radius. More on that later. Upon entering the zone Radius, you'll find yourself armed with nothing save your trusty sidearm and some grit. You'll soon learn that willpower is not a suitable compensator for 9x18mm. Scavenge for food, ammunition, and weapons, and find the local e-girl's apartment to steal their cameras. I know it may tempt you to gaze upon their contents, but be warned. The black market considers these to be trap cameras, so view at your own peril. Sell the leaks, buy some ammunition and medication, start taking jobs, and start making money. The Radius is a dangerous place, but fortunately for you, military logistics is about as competent Pechorsk as your average Eastern European nation, and the Lord of War, Merchant of Death, Victor Bout, was recently exchanged for. So rest assured, you'll have your pick of the finest weapons on the market. Pechorsk's pile of lead launchers includes NATO, USSR, and civilian armaments. Each and every one accurately replicated in look and operation, as well as subtle details, including folding stocks, weapon conditions and jamming, and appropriate compatible attachments. Thank God, because if I see one more Bubba SKS, I'm gonna brown! Unfortunately for you, exploring the Radius only offers a handful of unique weapons, and the black market is charging Lord of War prices. So if you want that M4, then you better get back down in that pit, and start looking for pretty rocks. That's when I realized the true cost of these illicit weapons. Used to wage crude, bloody warfare in third world countries, it's not the blood diamonds of Africa, American tax dollars of Ukraine, or German gas dollars of Russia. The true cost is the suffering that must be endured to afford these weapons of war. But you know what they say. One man's suffering is another man's segue. Combat is frenetic, claustrophobic, and deadly. Though there's plenty of things to do in Pechorsk, there is an emphasis on navigating buildings in order to look for loot. In ITR, you get to live a day in the life of a Russian urban explorer. That is to say, stalking through crumbling hallways and submerged ruins, chain-smoking cigarettes to forget the fact that you didn't or couldn't pack a lunch today, desperately searching for silver boxes to recover their valuable contents, and warding off the locals from your meager stash. And like any good population of aggressive vagabonds, you'll typically find ITR's enemies congregated in buildings. The mushrooms on the walls and the stagnant water in the basement make for perfect nesting conditions. Sanitizing a hive is a perilous dungeon crawl filled with traps, enemies, literal pitfalls, and that legendary loot table. Keep in cover, watch your corners, and keep track of your gear. Follow these fundamentals and you'll swiftly graduate from a level 6 crook to a level 60 boss. And then still get bodied by nearly everything with a gun in the radius. Overcoming a major challenge in this game was one of the finest hits of the good stuff that I've gotten in years, and I believe it is the suffering to reach it that makes this that much sweeter. So if you die, don't give up, just grab another gun off the rack and get back out there, out there, out there, out there. You'll be doing a lot of suffering in the radius, but the importance of all this suffering is that it is done at your own consent. Into the Radius hands me an objective, and every action to complete this goal is at my own discretion, at my own choice. I don't get to choose whether or not to pay corrupt politicians to graciously elect on my behalf to send $10 million to Pakistan for gender studies. I don't get to choose to live in a society where a pink-haired woman's bathwater is roughly equivalent to my annual income. And I don't get to choose to legalize medical psilocybin and recreational light machine guns. I do, however, get to choose what weapons I use, what jobs I take, what loot I carry, and what fruits of my labor I get to keep. For example, your first choice is: do you go to the less volatile locales of the Radius to make a quick buck, or do you feel well equipped enough to venture into the... What jobs do you take? A quick dabble in photography? Diamond mining? Genocide? Perhaps you can go and collect the last remaining drip from the guy they hired before you. How will you engage? Afar, mid-range, or deathwish? What ammo will you use? What ammo can you even afford to use? Do you use a suppressor? A grenade launcher? Nighttime calls for flares, smoke grenades for defilade, and don't forget to set aside a third of your income for medical insurance. Now that you're suitably equipped, we can start asking the real questions. Do you cut across the river, clambering out the other side, half drowned because you were caught lacking on Spine Extension Day? Do you come from the south, cutting across the open field, hoping it doesn't spot you on its patrol? How do you assault this compound? Do you come from the north, using the walls and retention pond as cover, clearing the courtyard before pushing in with a CQB weapon? Do you enter from the east with a suppressed rifle, working with the methodical efficiency of special forces? Or maybe you'd prefer to have a long-range engagement?
A few moments later.
And the final gauntlet of this choice-based game loop, coming home. What you do here will directly decide if the next time you go out, you come back in one piece. Or more accurately, one body. Repair your equipment, clean your guns, fill your mags, partake in the black market, eat your vegetables, and then choose what to buy and what to bring on your next trip. Pop quiz. You have only $400 left in your account. Do you buy a second syringe, or do you buy enough ammo to nearly top off your AKM? Wrong! You drop your rifle, pick up the sawed-off 12 gauge you found earlier, and head back into the first zone to scour every inch of it, because you're saving for that Groza and its integrated grenade launcher, and you must suffer for success before you may suffer from success. All of these choices matter, even if it only means you'll have to backtrack to your last save. However, you can increase your anxiety immersion by activating Iron Man mode. Bonus points if you play realistic, like I did, like a goddamn fool. Which tweaks up the tweakers, tweaks down the dollars, and disables manual saving. If you enjoy CBT, hangnails, or War Thunder simulator battles, This is the game mode for you. Before this video, I refused to play on this setting. I wanted to play the game like a war hero. I wanted to kick bubblegum and chew ass. However, I knew that if I was going to convince you to purchase this game, I'd need some gamer credentials. So I slapped on my suit, and I got to work. And I can say that the first half of this game feels like a survival horror game, and is definitely a worthy experience. The second half of the game is absolute bullshit. The issue herein lies that no matter what kind of ammunition or weapons you take, if you pick a gunfight, you are going to take damage. Every single time. Any opponent that is armored is instantly a bullet sponge, and regardless if you're wearing armor or not yourself, you are bullet toilet paper. So yes, I completed the game, and I got the trophy. Here it is. Play Iron Man mode to your heart's content. It's fine, it just adds a little bit more walking to whenever you die. Realistic, however, is like a bad acid trip. At first, you roll with the punches because you know what you're getting yourself into. But fast forward to 2 AM when you're curled up on the floor, screaming into the void and surrounded by broken household objects, and you realize you were the frog all along, and the pot is boiling. All that being said, it was still a very special moment to feel fear in this game once again. So now, here is a quick story about that experience. As I wandered through a forest in the twilight hours, in this once again truly vulnerable state, I suddenly remembered. This is a survival horror game. I was out of ammunition, injured with no way to heal myself, and crippled by the weight of the cheap loot that I was hoarding on my back. And before me stood death. I tactfully shat myself as I squatted, in real life, and crept through the pitch-black forest, hoping and praying that my dummy-thick cheeks wouldn't alert the patrolling mimics. My prayers went unanswered. From then on, I felt the fear of God as the game had, without even killing me, reminding me of where my place was in this world.
Simple. The food chain. You see, on top there's and there's
Oh, that's me.
no. There's
Well, then there's me.
I'm getting there. There's rocks. And then there's you.
Far Cry 2 is a fantastic game, and a game that deserves its rod polished to completion in another video. But for now, its importance to ITR is this. Far Cry 2, the sort of black sheep of the Far Cry family, is slower, grittier, and much less forgiving than any of its siblings. It doesn't put you in a power fantasy, and if anything, it does the exact opposite, grounding you to reality and your abilities as a human being. And ITR does much the same. You are limited to your fragile Homo erectus spinal structure. Your stomach gnaws at you to feed. Your feeble flesh hasn't even passed the 22 phase in the lead immunity via exposure exercise, and there's no cybernetic upgrades to change that. Plate armor and a helmet only grants you a few more fractions to the seconds you'll have to be the survivor of a gunfight. Not even the expensive armor is invulnerable to fatigue, nor is your curated arsenal of firearms. And you need to treat them with the respect that they deserve, like a spouse, so they don't blow up and kill you when you least expect it. Both Far Cry 2 and ITR do their best to prolong this feeling of mastering the game and the world as long as possible. When you win an engagement, you don't feel particularly powerful, you just feel more effective, or sometimes just lucky. In this war of attrition fought between you and the entity the size of a small town, your best weapon is logistics and preparation. Forget to clean your weapon, or stock up on ammo and morphine, or even a bag of empty shell casings, and you'll be another blackened body in this hellscape. The slow moments of resupplying, trading, and kitting yourself out make up the secret formula for making any encounter feel like a story worth telling, a theatrical set piece of gritty, asymmetrical warfare with a crescendo all due to your own actions before this event even occurred. Finally, let's talk about the tale that Into the Radius spins. It's nothing to write home about, but that didn't stop the inhabitants of Pechorsk from writing down whatever they were thinking right before getting Medusa'd. By aliens, or ghosts, or science shit, I don't really know, it doesn't say. In a revolutionary form of open-world storytelling, Into the Radius and its lore is conveyed through phantom conversations and audio tapes. These tapes of which have no distinctions from the spine-shivering, tension-tingling, ear-shattering mixtapes of Coactor. There are plenty of notes and conversations of long-since lost spirits, scattered across the Radius, which range from snippets of life before the event, locations of Radius fortunes, and documentation of the misfortunes of your fellow explorers. I found them, if nothing else, an interesting break from my grind of supplying the Eurasian arms market with rusted AK-47s and Tokarevs. Collecting diamonds soaked in your own blood may be lucrative, but this act directly benefits the bourgeoisie, and does not bring the same satisfaction as arming the proletariat. Every rifle, shotgun, and magazine you clean and sell is another babushka, exercising her God-given right to mag dump from her porch. If you were to engage in the story presented, you'll find a young woman narrating her own slice of life before the event, showcasing how quickly a peaceful life could be obliterated by something beyond your control, perhaps even beyond your comprehension. Something so potent in destruction, it could, with a single command, wipe everything you've ever known off the planet before you even knew your life was over. The girl's story and its coinciding missions are outlandish and paranormal in nature, and follows this cosmic horror veneer to the end. It never explains what exactly happened here, nor where here exactly is. The most information you'll receive is after these missions, someone will sneak behind you and reverse pickpocket a special note into your backpack to regale you of a certain event, from the perspective of a bystander from some other time, possibly some other place. Unfortunately, with the plethora of scrap paper scribbled on in the radius, one's foray with these cosmically composed letters may first be overlooked, such as mine. Oh, someone pulled a heist of a lofty 3,000 rubles at the factory. Wow, that's wild. Anyway, you'll likely follow the story and the missions it offers you, regardless of your investment in it, for those cold, hard digital dollars. As well as funding your 762 addiction for about an hour, the story missions will have you gravitate through all 5 radii that populate the central radius, where you'll be charged with completing increasingly difficult and unusual excursions, facing off against exponentially more dangerous hazards. If I'm honest, the story is disjointed and not particularly important. It serves as a fine vessel to introduce you to the new zones and unlock a new kit, but don't enter the radius expecting the Citizen Kane. But that is just my opinion. Perhaps you will be able to find a more lofty meaning to this game than being able to play with a bunch of firearms that I'll never be able to own in real life, so I won't spoil any of the story for you. All in all, this game is a slow burn. And when games like Superhot, Boneworks, and Pavlov VR are on the market, that might not be the most immediately enticing trait. But trust me, give it the time it needs, and it will be one of the most immersive video games you can inject directly into your base senses that's available in current year. Into the Radius's exploration of an uncanny open world, titular combat, and survival aspects makes it a poster child of what VR could be. If you come for nothing else, the gunplay is by far the best in the VR business, hands down. This game definitely has its problems. I can no longer tell what is a bug and what is the Radius just fucking with me. The AI isn't amazing, and there's this thing. I'm not upset, but I do have 2 questions. 1, why? 2, Obrezmos and when? I don't have many more complaints. In fact, I have more praise. ITR works as a handy benchmark program, and if any of your components are starting to fail, it'll let you know. Especially if you're trying to record it. This video has so far costed me 1 PSU. I'm not particularly worried about the bugs or any stream of content anyway, as CM Games still frequently updates into the Radius with quality of life improvements, map updates, and new toys to play with. I'm always anxious for a new update so I can take a retreat from the daily grind, where I can unwind by role-playing as a serialized cog in a machine designed to siphon as much wealth as possible out of a dying world, making someone else rich while I struggle to pinch the pennies they drop at my feet. There's an active, friendly community of ITR players that frequent Reddit, Twitter, Discord, and all the like. 90% of Reddit posts are either gun requests, which I am extremely guilty of, and posts titled, "Rate My Base, fellas," followed by a clip from an episode of Hoarders. Here's my base. If you post a picture of your field kit or a video of you shrieking like a little girl, the community will embrace you with open, knowing arms. So I highly encourage this activity. For the longest time, I gave this game a rating of 1 kidney out of your body in order to play it, but recently it's gotten Quest support. Enjoy nearly all the features of this $30 experience without the front-loaded investment similar in price to a used 2006 Toyota Corolla. If you are able, and you can appreciate a desolate atmosphere, a choice of bygone-era weapons, living paycheck to paycheck, and knife-edge combat, you should play this game. Stalker. You should play this game if you liked Stalker. If you've stuck around this long, you're probably invested enough for the sick-ass music montage I have in store for you, but allow me this quick, self-shill conclusion. All the minute-to-minute gameplay decisions are just the caramelized onions that sit atop this choice steak. The real importance of this game is how I get to play it. There's nothing stopping me from pursuing my own goal in this game. There's no one heckling me to finish any quest, so the only person who affects what I do in this world is myself. It's a liberty that I can't help but appreciate, and it's one that I'm trying to translate to my own life. Through Pavlovian conditioning, this game taught me that I was free to just do what interested me, and make my own stories in the process. I'll make many mistakes, but that's okay, because I can try again, and I'll have more experience. I made this video to try and share that feeling with you. Try out what interests you, and make your own story. If what interests you is Into the Radius, that's honestly just icing. What I'm trying to get at is don't let the world steer you down the track it's set for you. Life is not a railroad, it's a highway, which still functions as a path to get from point A to point B. However, cars, with the correct preparation, can go wherever the fuck they want. Basically, I am a car. With this video, and those that will come before it, I am modifying myself to be more adept for the places that I want to go in this world. I advise you do the same, as we have a very short time in this universe, and wasting it toiling for someone else, despite what they tell you, will not lead to your happiness. At least, it hasn't for me, that's for sure. So, please, like and subscribe, and help me change lanes on this ephemeral highway that we all must ride.
Затянуто, нервы гитарной струною натянуты. Дождь барабанит с утра и до вечера. Время застывшее кажется вечностью. Мы наступаем по всем направлениям. Танки, пехота, огонь артиллерии. Нас убивают, но мы выживаем. И снова в атаку себя мы бросаем. Давай за жизнь, давай, брат, до конца. Тех, кто с нами был тогда, давай за жизнь, будь проклята война, помянем тех, кто с нами был тогда. Небо над нами свинцовыми тучами стелется низко туманами рваными. Хочется верить, что все уже кончилось, только бы выжил товарищ мой раненый. Ты потерпи, браток, не умирай пока. Будешь ты жить еще долго и счастливо. Будем на свадьбе твоим отплясывать. Будешь ты в небо детишек подбрасывать. Давай за жизнь, держись, брат, до конца. Давай за тех, кто дома ждет тебя. далеких городов. И за друзей, и за любовь. Давай за вас, давай за нас. И за десант, и за спецназ. За боевые ордена. Давай поднимем старина. В старом альбоме нашел фотографии деда. Он был командиром Красной армии, сына на память. Берлин 45-го, век ушедшего воспоминания. Запах травы на рассвете, нескошенной стоны земли. От бомбежек распаханной пара солдатских ботинок стоп. Войнами новыми, войнами старыми. Давай сожги.
Explorer number 61, wherever you are, even if you are only in my mind now. Thank you. Thank you.
I forgot to tell you there's a part 2 to your gift.
Part 2? Part 2, part 2, part 2, part